Hello and welcome back to more CornNation Overreaction Revisited. Greg Mahochko here, of course, the host of the Five Heart Podcast, which you can check out every Thursday night live at 9 o'clock Central on Facebook, YouTube, and X, as I smack the crap out of the microphone. And I'm tickled to death to be joined by my good friend and broadcast buddy, Hoss Reuter. Less excited for tonight's topic, or today's topic, or whenever the hell you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on your favorite podcast app. This one, oh boy, revisiting 2023 Colorado.
Yeah.
Hoss, the whole purpose of this show is to revisit emotionally detached. Can you do that when we're talking about what happened last year in Boulder?
I don't know if we can.
Okay,
I don't know.
So.
Well, let me rephrase that. I don't know. I don't mean to speak for you. I don't know if I can, because when I think back to that loss in Boulder, I think about a game that, to the casual observer, which there were a lot of them back in September that suddenly liked the Colorado Buffaloes,
right.
Especially when you got DraftKings tweeting shit out like, what would the point spread be? 2023 Colorado versus 2019 LSU, stuff like that. So they were just picking the low hanging fruit that's never watched college football before. But when you think about that game and you look at the final score, if you're a casual observer, you think, oh, Colorado must have really dominated that game. No,
it was not the case.
There were stretches of that game where Nebraska, we were on the verge of being able to really, basically, stomp a mud hole in Colorado and walk it dry, had the offense not decided to spit the bit over and over again in crucial situations.
Well, let's talk about it. September 9th, 2023, Folsom Field with a robust 53,241 in attendance. The fans in attendance and the millions watching around the world, is what Michael Buffer used to say, had to sit and endure, depending on whose side you were on. Colorado wins that one 36-14. Teams were scoreless in the first quarter. Colorado went to the halftime up 13-0. Nebraska, as you mentioned, didn't muster a ton of offense. It didn't help. At the time, I think we were viewing it, didn't help so much that Jeff Sims got hurt at some point, and Heinrich Haarberg, Chubba Purdy all saw action in this game. Nebraska's outscored 10-7 in the third quarter, 13-7 in the fourth quarter, but they did have the final score, the final touchdown of the game. We'll get to it. I thought defensively, Nebraska played well, which is a weird thing to say when they give up 36 points. But what is going to become the unfortunate theme of the 2023 season is that the offense very often left the defense in bad situations.
Absolutely. And without the stats directly in front of me, I'd wager to bet that half of those points for Colorado came on very short drives where we turned the ball over in our own territory. We sacked Shedeur Sanders probably, I think, 7 times, pressured him consistently all day. If not for some untimely turnovers of our own, and then Colorado just capitalizing on those turnovers, I think that it's a much closer game, like a 24-10 loss. Something that looks a little bit more like, wow, that was a hard-fought game. Mm-hmm. That being said, if our offense shows up in that game, if our offense isn't infected with the turnover bug, and if we're able to execute in certain situations and capitalize in the red zone, not miss field goals, not, have a quarterback dropping snaps when you're having a good drive going. With the way the defense played, there's every expectation that we could have won that game something like 31-13.
Let's I'm gonna start crying. So much for emotionally detached.
I know, right?
Here were Nebraska's drives. They had, well, I'm not going to count. I'm going to say 12. I think it was 12, maybe 13. Fumble, punt, missed field goal, fumble, interception, punt. That's the first half. Touchdown, punt, fumble, turnover and downs, touchdown. A lot of fumbles, interception, turnover on downs. Missed opportunities left and right. I'll say this: I don't even know. I don't even know where to go. It was the comedy of errors, less on the comedy.
And going into that game on our first couple of drives, well, actually, let's rewind to our very first drive of the game. We moved the ball really well into Colorado territory. I thought that we had a really solid game plan, really focusing on running between the tackles with Gabe Ervin kind of being that, primary focal point of the game plan. Jeff Sims hit some nice passes on that first drive to Alex Bullock and Billy Kemp. I was drawing a total blank for a second there. Also got Fedoni involved. And for a little bit there, you're looking like, okay, there's a game plan here and a level of execution that, we could win this thing, because, again, Colorado played a TCU team that was just not very good. They lost a lot of people from their national championship appearance season in 2022. And on top of that, they had lost Garrett Riley to Clemson, their play caller. I thought that Colorado's win was way inflated against TCU and thought that the way that we played defense would have a really good shot against Colorado. And for the most part, I'd say the defense, they carried their water in this game with all the sacks and pressures on Shedeur Sanders, the way we defended in coverage. It was just when I think the defense got discouraged after so many times missed turnovers, missed field goal, turnovers, punts, not being able to execute, where Colorado seized momentum there. And then, a few mistakes in game 2 of the season under a new coaching staff, like, I forget which DB it was. It might have been Malcolm Hartzog that just stumbled a little bit in coverage against Travis Hunter. And Hunter's gone on a deep pass that honestly probably should have been a Shedeur Sanders sack. Right. I thought that for the most part, Nebraska came into that game with the right game plan, with the right defensive intensity, and it was the same mistakes that haunted them all season that prevented Nebraska from winning this game. Again, 36-14 looks like a blowout. It wasn't.
No, and that's the thing, too, is, when we look at – you talk about sacks, we got to Sanders 3 times. Cam Lenhart, by the way, in his second game –
3 times?
It
was only 3 times?
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe tackles for loss, included in – maybe I'm thinking tackles for loss, but there were a lot of sacks in that game.
Unless I'm – oh, yeah. My bad. That was just second quarter.
Right. This is the game that I remember thinking, Cameron Lenhart, this guy looks like he's going to be a freshman All-American.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was. Let me back up. By back up, I mean scroll all the way back up to the top. I apologize. Good Lord, I apologize to you good people listening.
Fred is
you deserve better.
You. And the realtors of CornNation are judging.
All right, 8 sacks. That's a little different than 3. 3 of them in one quarter. 8 total for 65 yards.
If you were to have told me, and just for a little bit of context here to our listeners, 2 days before this game, I was down in Kansas City for the Chiefs-Lions season opener. And when I was walking out of the stadium, a Lions fan, well, I thought it was a Lions fan that I was talking to, they ended up being there for their friends who were Lions fans, but they were a Carolina Panthers fan. And they were bitching to high heaven about Matt Rule. And I, basically was the one to tell them, like, no, I think it was an owner problem that you have with Dave Tepper. But he was talking about how Colorado is going to beat Nebraska so badly. Excuse me. And I remember saying, like, basically, you know, I had a little bit of alcohol in my system, and I was like, no, Nebraska's going to win outright. And it wasn't just the alcohol. I truly believed all week that Nebraska was going to win that game against Colorado. But if you would have told me that night when I was in Kansas City that we would sack Shedeur Sanders 8 times, I would have thought that we definitely would have won. I mean, like, you don't see a team lose 36-14 and generate 8 sacks on the opposing quarterback. There were a lot of statistical aberrations, anomalies in games last year, and that Colorado game might be one of the more better examples of a statistical anomaly in college football in quite some time.
We had, so 11 total tackles for loss, but 8 of them were classified as sacks. 1 forced fumble, 1 recovery, 2 pass breakups. You had Isaac Gifford leading the charge with 8 tackles. You know, when we look at the other, side of things, what they actually yielded, they didn't. I mean,
those are total yards.
Our total yards or their total yards?
Colorado's total yards.
454.
454. How many plays did they run?
77. 5.9 yards per play. We were 63 plays at 5.4 yards per play, 341 total yards for Nebraska. Here's I look for glimmers of hope. I think that what we saw against Minnesota carried over as far as that run defense, and I know it became the Shedeur Sanders show. I mean, because we talked in the past about that Dylan Edwards, who who looked like he was going to be just a tremendous piece of the puzzle for Colorado. He had like 1 carry for 0 yards against Nebraska. He had 3 touchdowns against TCU. I think as a freshman. You know,
he's now at Kansas State.
Yeah, I know he entered the portal, and I feel like he saw the writing on the wall. But our defense held Colorado to 58 yards rushing. Yep. Everything that they did through the air. Now, I mean, say what you want about the quarterback situation there in Boulder. It was, I mean, they went full air raid, dare I say, and I guess Nebraska just didn't have the Jimmies and Joes to match up with them. I don't know. Help me rationalize that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we sold out to stop. I mean, let me rephrase this. I don't want to say it like we sold out to stop the run because that's why we stopped the run. We stopped the run because we had a superior front 7 to their offensive line. In terms of the passing game, you know, one of the things about last year's defense, as good as it was, its Achilles heel at times was defending against the pass. On top of that, you know, getting off the field on 3rd down was also a bit of a weak point for that defense. But a lot of those passes for Shedeur Sanders came after it was apparent that we weren't going to do anything on offense. We weren't going to be able to execute. And it was just kind of a case of the dam finally broke wide open because they were playing really good coverage in the first half. And then as the game went on, I think it was one of the times, I can't remember which turnover it was, but Colorado recovered the fumble and immediately Shedeur Sanders hits their wide receiver Worthy on a deep over route where the defense just had a little bit of a miscommunication in the secondary on, you know, matchup zone, who's passing off a deep over route as the safety, you know, clamping over the top of it or who's running underneath of it. And so that was the moment, like that was a big play. And then there were some other big plays that were had, like the deep shot to Travis Hunter when Malcolm Hartzog stumbled a little bit in coverage. And then there was also a freak play too, where somebody like was bearing down on Sanders, and right as they hit him, he got the ball off and it went for a gain.
Right.
There were a lot of plays that like sometimes quarterbacks are just going to fit them into windows, you know, like Shedeur Sanders, as much as we kind of talk about the, Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders on the Five Heart podcast.
Nepotism.
Yeah, the nepotism of it all. He is an accurate quarterback. He has a good arm. I'll give him that, but I still think those stats are so conflated by Nebraska's offensive inability to finish drives.
I think that one interception and quick strike that you're talking about was in the second quarter, was the lone touchdown for Colorado in the second quarter. Nebraska threw an interception with 2:43 left, and for one play went one play 30 yards, 8 seconds for a touchdown. Is that probably the one that you're thinking about there?
That's the exact one I'm thinking about.
I mean, that's
and if anyone,
that's a dagger to most programs, really.
If anyone says momentum doesn't exist in football, I mean, that right there is a great example. Like, we were punching in that game still at that point. Mm-hmm. Hell, I think that we went down swinging in this game. I mean, it's evident we scored on the final play of the game, Harburg to Fedoni. It was evident that this team was not just going to sit there and, let Colorado do whatever they wanted to do.
I do think that that's one of the things that we've seen. I don't say evolve. I don't think that's the right phrase. That's not the right word, but
merge.
We've seen it, just a change of mindset, a lot more mental toughness.
Yep.
It's easy when you're, let's go back, down 13-0 at halftime, 23-7 after 3. It's easy to be like, all right, well, today's not our day. Let's go out there and not get injured. And again, you keep fighting. I'm trying not to be too complacent, apathetic, be like, well, you can't win them all. Like, damn it.
No.
That's one we should win.
I remember after that game just feeling absolutely sick about the fact that not only did we lose to Colorado, but the fact that
again
their win against us was just going to fuel another week of that hype train that was just out of control. I mean, that was a train carrying nuclear materials that was a runaway train. I mean,
didn't that win
last year? I almost didn't even want to watch anything related to college football except for a Nebraska game because it was so fucking nauseating.
Didn't that win put Colorado in like the top 25? Or was it the week after?
No, they were already ranked when they beat TCU. They're ranked after they beat TCU.
Okay.
Then they climbed a little bit, and then they beat Colorado State the following week.
Oh, that's right. They were 22. They were 22.
Glorious Oregon Colorado game when Oregon was up 42-0 at the end of, I think, the third quarter.
It was a dose of reality for old Deion and company. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Nebraska's got no room to talk. We took our lumps. We went to Boulder and took our lumps and probably our pee-filled Ziploc bags. Whatever else that Colorado fans are throwing out there. I can't make excuses for it. Can't say the better team won. You could say that Nebraska couldn't stop stepping on our dicks.
And I still say, looking back at that game, Nebraska, this coaching staff approached that game the complete right way, in terms of the game plan, in terms of meshing the team's identity with the game plan. If you go back and rewatch those first few drives, we're under center a lot, and we're running, we're playing power football. We're running, power plays, lining up in the ace formation, motioning H-backs and fullbacks, running toss sweep, ace wind back zone, which is a big, nice misdirection play, out of that kind of personnel and formation. And we were playing with a style and an attitude that you could tell that this staff emphasized to the team all week that we were going to go in there and we were going to hit them right in the mouth on both sides of the ball, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. We were going to try to dominate, offensively and defensively. And we were really grinding on them and leaning on them, in the run game on some of those drives. And it's a crying ass shame that we couldn't execute when it mattered. That, you got that drive, that first drive ends with Jeff Sims dropping a snap. And then you got the interception. Then you got a Tristan Alvano missed field goal that really hurts. We were generating some pretty good momentum. I think that might have been only like 6-0 at that point. So if we could have got it to 6-3, that would have been huge. But I still think that, there were some positives to be taken out of this game. The moment didn't look too big for Nebraska. They didn't sit there. There's other Nebraska teams in the past. I'm not going to name, who it was that was in charge of these teams. We'll just leave it up to the listener to decide. But there are other teams in the past for Nebraska that the moment would have been too big for them. They would have lost, not on Saturday, but they would have lost every single day leading up to that game. They would have showed up and it would have been like, oh, this team beat TCU last year. They got 46, 47 new transfers. It's Deion Sanders. It's Big Noon Kickoff. We're just Nebraska. We can't do anything about that. We're going to lose this damn game. It's like the staff, Matt Rule collectively just basically said, fuck that. We're going to go in there and we're going to win, If we die, we die. That's the mentality.
I do remember, that drive that ended with the missed field goal. That drive started, let's see, at Nebraska 9-yard line. And it started with Gabe Ervin Jr. rushing for 26 yards.
Yep.
And he would have quite a few. I mean, he had
that for the
close to he had 40-something yards in that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Haas.
I was just going to say, for the listeners, if you want to go back and see an example of that ace wineback zone play, that first big run by Gabe Ervin on this drive is a great example of it.
And, the next one didn't go anywhere. We had a pass to Kemp for 18 yards that got us into Colorado territory. I mean, 3 plays going from Nebraska 9 into enemy territory, and then it just kind of stalled. I mean, I don't want to say stalled. Gabe, Urban Jr., had a 13-yard gain. We continued to move the ball, but just couldn't get that one through the uprights. But it was a 9-play drive that covered 64 yards and chewed up 5 minutes of clock. And then you come around and you get 3 and out from Colorado. You think, oh crap, maybe we're gonna build on some of that momentum, and fumble.
Yep.
Very next play is when Jeff Sims fumbled after a short. Well, I can't say a short gain. He was going out. He was getting sacked or something, and fumbled the ball. And yeah, negative 5 yards on that drive in 6 seconds.
One of the things that's interesting now that we're so detached from it, and kind of viewing it through a clinical lens, is when you look back at this game, you can see, wow, there was not a lot for Marcus Satterfield to work with. And I know he took his lumps last year from, the fan base. I said it too. I said it too, especially, at points in October when it was apparent that Heinrich Haarberg was just a little dinged up, that we weren't going to be able to really rely on that quarterback run game as an identity. But if you go back before the switch to Heinrich Haarberg and you look at that offense in totality, there wasn't a lot to work with to begin with. And then as the injuries piled up, I mean, it was truly like he was Ed Harris's character in Apollo 13 and Mission Control, just trying to cobble together whatever he could. I have more of an appreciation for what Marcus Satterfield accomplished last year when I look back, detached from the games, not in the heat of the moment. And the fact that we beat a really good Northwestern team that went on to beat Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl, that was a nice win. We really had to scratch and fight and claw. And he put the players on offense in a position to succeed. It was just a lot of mistakes that were being made execution-wise. I know Matt Rule liked to talk about that first play of the game against Northwestern when Heinrich Haarberg throws a pick, and Nate Burkacher's wide ass open on a corner route that would have been an 80-yard touchdown first play of the game. It's those, that difference between is it a bad play call because it's just not going to work against that defense, or is it a good play call and the execution of the play on the field doesn't work out? So, yeah, I thought that, back to the Colorado game, even though there wasn't a lot to work with, they had an identity, they had a plan, they were going to stick with it. And, you don't account for your quarterback, melting down, in game when you're in practice all week, putting together a game plan, especially when you only have, now to be fair, he was the NCAA leader in turnovers his first 3 years at Georgia Tech, but you're willing to give him a fresh shot and wipe the slate clean. And, you're thinking, okay, he had those turnovers against Minnesota. Let's just, that's a small sample size. Let's just move on from there. But, like our good friend of the show, not really a friend of the show, Denny Green of the Arizona Cardinals, you say, Bears are who we thought they were. Yep. Jeff Sims is who we thought he was,
Yeah, and Sims, he finished the day 9 of 15 with 1 interception, 106 yards through the air, got sacked twice. Longest pass was 21 yards. I think that's the one we just talked about with Billy Kemp. He also had, I was going to say he had 90 yards on the ground, but he netted 67 yards in a touchdown.
70 of them were one play.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a little, even the stats there are a little deceiving, but man, you with the exception of Gabe Ervin Jr. by 7 yards and quite a few less that were, negative yards, Jeff Sims would have been the leading rusher, and we've got to get away. Haas, you're a gentleman of a certain age. When it was the 1990s, were you okay with your quarterback being the team's leading rusher?
I was 9 when the decade ended. But I saw a lot of quarterbacks be our leading rusher from 2002, on. I've never been okay with it.
Yeah.
Whether it was Lamar Lord, whether it was Taylor Martinez, Tommy Armstrong, Adrian Martinez, never okay with it. Because quarterback's not meant to be your leading rusher. That was the downfall of Frank Solich. The old Tom Osborne, Nebraska offense, the quarterback was meant to be a facilitator, an athletic facilitator that could get you yards and run the option, if need be. But until Scott Frost rolled around, there weren't a whole lot of designed quarterback runs. There were a few, there were some in the mid-90s that were utilized, but using your quarterback as an inside runner was not something until Frost came around. Solich, he utilized Crouch and Lord as inside runners to the detriment of the rest of the offense. And so when your quarterback's your leading rusher and he's going to take a lot of punishment, your passing game is going to suffer every time, And, having a strong passing game, as we learned this year, you have to be at least proficient in the passing game. We got to 5 and 7 by the skin of our teeth. Arguably should have been more. We got 5 and 3 heading into the last week. But yeah, we've got to find a way to not have that happen moving forward, and I feel pretty confident that we're not going to have that happen moving forward. I don't see Dylan Raiola running a whole lot of quarterback counter and bash counter,
Or Heinrich Harburg.
Come on, man. Let's just be real, I think we'll use Heinrich Harburg situationally like the Saints use Taysom Hill. I think you'll see that. But from a starting quarterback, I think at most you're going to see Dylan Raiola run an occasional quarterback draw or maybe a speed option on 3rd and 3 and pitch it wide to the back, to hit the corner, get the first down. But I don't think you're going to see, 18 carries for 90-some yards like some of our former quarterbacks.
What about those packages drawn up that have Dylan and Heinrich both on the field at the same time?
I see that you like to watch Kansas football, my friend.
No, I just can't, because when we first saw Heinrich last year, it was at tight end.
I think you'll see it. I think you'll see stuff like that, especially red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Always look for stuff like that in the red zone. That play that we saw Heinrich Harburg on at tight end against Minnesota, that was a 3rd and 3. So all situationally, red zone, 3rd and short, stuff like that is where you'll probably see that stuff. Those wrinkles. One thing I wanted to mention too, as we kind of clinically dissected this Colorado game, this game still hurts like hell, man.
Damn right it does.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, God, this needs to be our game plan for, them this year. It'll be a little bit more pass, centric with what we think we'll have, heading into the season. But I just want us to line up and just punch them in the mouth repeatedly.
That's the thing is I don't think the game plan needs to change a whole lot from Colorado 23 to Colorado 24. It's just I think the level of execution is going to be much greater.
Yep.
We've got upgrades. We need to get Cobby Corn, get that shirt going. Which, by the way, I don't think I have. Yeah, sure. Get your CornNation merch at cobbycorn.com and support us. We don't have any revisited CornNation Overreaction shirts. John doesn't like us. John still hasn't sent me a shirt that he owes me, but that's all right. I'm not bitter or mad or bringing it up every week. And hey, just a reminder before we go, if you like what we're doing here, make sure you hit that thumbs up, the like button. Let me turn that off. There we go. Hit thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications so you know every time we upload new goodness, whether it's CornNation Overreaction Revisited, whether it's Monday Night Therapy, 5 Heart Podcast, a short, whatever it might be. John's ridiculous post-game rants from the bathroom, which hopefully we have less of that this year and more outside under a tree in nature enjoying life, because Nebraska football will be better this year. It's definitely not going to get worse. Haas, one more question before we let you go. It is late. God dang, it's almost 11 o'clock here. Does Danny Dimes redshirt this year, or does that leave you too short, too limited at quarterback?
I think he redshirts.
Redshirt and then pull it if necessary, like in break glass in case of emergency.
I hope it doesn't come to that, and I'm not saying that as anything anti-Danny Dimes.
No.
I'm just be nice to keep a quarterback upright all season and healthy, and it'd be nice to preserve Danny's red shirt and start building some quarterback depth.
And we have I don't have the JT, the new kid that just the 4-star from Orange, California.
TJ Latif.
Thank you. I knew I was going to get it wrong. I appreciate you. I feel like what Matt Rule and company are doing are they're setting up, years of consecutive quarterback success.
Instead of scrambling every year to figure out who the fuck are we going to have playing quarterback.
Right. Or, because, God forbid, one goes down and then you've got you're so much better with the memory. The kid who transferred in from like South Dakota State or something like that and backed up Tommy Armstrong.
He didn't Riker 5?
Yeah, thank you.
He didn't transfer. He was a 5-year guy at Nebraska.
All right. Well, I apologize.
He probably should have. He probably should have been out of South Dakota State.
No offense, right?
No, they play some good ass football.
They do.
That skill set probably fit him. That offense fit him a little bit more than he fit what we were trying to do at the time.
I meant no offense, Riker. I know you're watching this and you're pissed off. And if you are, you can send your hate mail to CornNation@gmail.com. And John will read it, and then he'll yell it, send it to me.
Exactly.
So that'll do it for this. I think we squeezed just about as much out of the stone of Boulder as we can. Look forward to beating the royal piss out of them this coming year. Yes, sir.
I have one more thing I want to say.
Please do.
Last year we had fewer touchdowns than Dion has toes. This year I hope we have more touchdowns than he has toes.
Multiples. Thank you. That's definitely a 5-heart comment, and we appreciate it. By the way, I also want to say I was always on the Marcus Satterfield bandwagon. I named the comment section after him, the Chatterfields. And if you want to be a Chatterfield, make sure that you join us Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Central, God's favorite time zone, on YouTube, Facebook, and X, as well as Monday Night Therapy and all the other great shows that we have, great content on YouTube. So to my good friend and truly good friend and broadcast buddy Haas Reuter, thank you for staying up late with me. And I'm Greg Mahochko. This is CornNation Overreaction Revisited. I don't have a really good clean out for this one. I will just say, go Big Red.
And you, Nebraska, can conquer. William Jennings Bryan said that.
You know, I was just in his hometown tonight.
Salem, Illinois, huh?
Yeah. That's why I got home so damn late. It's an hour and a half drive home.
Yeah, that's a haul, man.
I'm going to hit end record now. This is the end of the show.
Perfect. Yeah.